All right, welcome everyone. My name is Curtis Rogers. I'm going to try to share my screen here. So give me just a second and I will get into my PowerPoint.
Morning.
And let's see if we can get that started. Okay, so hopefully everyone should see my PowerPoint. Is that visible?
Yes, looks good from here.
Okay, great.
If anybody has any technology, oh, we lost it.
Yeah, I forgot to do that share computer sound.
Okay, if anybody has any technology challenges or things you start to not be able to see or hear, message me in chat and we'll figure it out. So hopefully everything is good.
Thank you. And I've opened up my gallery and my chat box, so I think everything should be fine right now, and hopefully everyone can see that first slide, networking for library staff members. Usually it takes me a few minutes to get these started. But anyway, welcome everyone. Like Tiffany said, my name is Curtis Rogers. I'm the Communications Director at the South Carolina State Library. I have been there just a little while, 27 years. Actually, January 2nd was my 27th anniversary at the South Carolina State Library. So I've been around a long time. I've worked in libraries for about 34 years now. Started out as a shelver of children's books at the Union Carnegie Library in Union, South Carolina. So even though shelving children's books, I managed to stay in the profession. But anyway, I'm gonna go through my PowerPoints. And one thing that I will say is that this is going to be a very interactive session. I have not taught this session before. So this is something new for me. So feel free to take notes throughout and give me feedback. I'm always open to that. I think this is a very fascinating topic. I've always loved networking. And we're talking about not IT. This is, social skills, just to make sure everyone knows that. So here is our overview of what we're going to cover today. And like I said, I haven't done this before, and I'm just looking at a chat from Kate. One of the most difficult tasks, shelving children's book. Yes, it's a wonder why I stayed in the profession. But anyway, like I said, I haven't done this session before. So time-wise, I'm going to try to keep an eye on time and make sure that we are sticking to within our hour. I do not ever like to go over the amount of time. I much prefer to end earlier. So hopefully we'll be done in plenty of time to give you folks time for Q&A, but also feel free to ask questions throughout. So like I said, this is going to be an interactive session. So I'm going to try to make sure you do not fall asleep and you're not checking email and doing lots of other things during the session, which I know I'm very ADD, and sometimes during sessions I'm like, oh, I could do this, I could get this done, I'll check my phone, all that good stuff. But hopefully I'll try to keep you all engaged. One thing that I would like to mention is, and this right off the bat, we're doing networking virtually. One of the things you can do in Zoom is to rename yourself. And one of the things that is really helpful when you rename yourself on Zoom is to include your library name. So I'm going to go ahead and rename myself. And the way you do that is if you look at where your image is in the gallery, you should see 3 little dots in the upper right-hand corner of your little video or however you're logged in. And you click on that, and then you click on rename. And so what I'm going to do is put after my name a dash and say SC State Library and hit OK. So now you should see my name is showing up in the video part, Curtis Rogers -SC State ... So what I'd like for you to do right now is to do that if you can. Just click on the 3 little dots and click on rename, and then you're able to rename yourself. I see some people's names are iPhone, We've got some people with their full names listed. Some people have images. If you're not able to rename yourself, that's fine. We're going to do something else that will be able to introduce yourself. So I see some of you doing that. Great. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So as you're renaming yourself, another thing that I would like you to do, and again, right off the bat to, and by the way, renaming yourself helps for the chat box because that will tell you when you do the chat, it actually has your name and what library you're from. So that's a good way to network virtually. So now what I would like for you to do is use the chat window to introduce yourself. So you can also reiterate your library if you weren't able to put that in your renaming, and list your job title. So go ahead and do that now and we can follow that. So go open the chat box and you can find the chat box usually at the bottom of your screen. And just click in the chat box. Okay, I see some folks. We've got York County Library, Lake Wiley Branch, Horry Georgetown Tech. Let's see. State Library, hey Jennifer. Charleston County Public. Another Charleston County, Richland Library. Matheson Library, Denmark Technical College, Clemson. All right, Lancaster County. Hey, Tiffany. Okay, Clemson, another Clemson, Allen University. See, so what we're doing right now, we're actually networking electronically. And I like to use this technique, and people, it gets people engaged. You're able to see who else is in the session with you. A lot of times you go into a session and you have no idea who else is in there. So here we've got USC Aiken. Hey, Susan. I'm good friends with your boss, Rodney. York Tech. Okay, Wofford, great, nice to see we've got a good blend of academic and public library folks. That's one thing I always like to do is make sure that sessions are open to all types of libraries because there's a lot of stuff academic librarians can learn from public librarians, and there's a lot of stuff public librarians can learn from academic librarians, so it's always helpful. All right, we've got a high school media specialist in Graniteville. Great. All right. Thank you for introducing yourselves and doing one of the first things in online networking. So that's very helpful. We can all see where folks are from. One of the other interesting things with chat is if you see someone you know or see someone at another library, you might want to introduce yourself. You can also chat just with that individual so that you don't make it public to everyone. And the way to do that is usually right there in the chat box where it says to everyone, you can do that little pull down and you can search for a person to chat with or find them listed in the list of attendees so that you can chat with them individually if you wanted to. Oh, great. I even see Tara saying hi to Cassie at Clemson. So, but anyway, so this was one little way that I wanted to start out this session by doing some actual online networking. Like I said, this will be an interactive session. We're going to talk about networking as far as the definition. And I'm also going to have you do an exercise for about 5 minutes. You're going to kind of brainstorm on your own, and then we're going to come back and discuss some things through chat. We'll also review some resources. And I'm going to spend some time talking about personality types because that's a very important thing. I've done some reviewing of Myers-Briggs and looking at those personality types. And so I'm going to talk to you about those 16 personality types and give you an assignment to do some homework and to define your own personality type. We'll also talk about internal social media and internal project planning and how that relates to networking. And also we'll talk about networking during COVID-19 and how it's very different from what it used to be. Also, if you just joined us, be sure and mute your microphone. That will be helpful for any kind of audio feedback. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the next slide here. And I just want to kind of talk about networking itself. And this is Dr. Jennifer Bonds-Rack. I think she's with the American Psychological Association. But anyway, the definition that she has in this article, and this is from Networking with Ease at apa.org, networking is about forging long-term reciprocal relationships that can help you and your colleagues do your jobs better. And I'm going to go ahead and ask you a first question for the chat box. Why do you think it's important to have reciprocal relationships in your job, in our profession in library science? So think about that for a second. Go ahead and type in what your response is. Why do you think it's important to have reciprocal relationships in our profession? And you don't have to do a long paragraphs, just, you know, any ideas that you have why you think it's important to have reciprocal relationships. Okay, Dina's talking about sharing ideas, teach and help each other. Two heads are better than one. Yes, exactly. Help support each other, professional support, mentorship. Yes, mentorship is very important. Adds much to our pool of knowledge so we can help each other. As librarians, we're about resources, and what better resources than another librarian? Exactly. That's very true. We work better together, learn from each other, share ideas, technology updates. That's key for me. I usually am having to ask someone how to do something about technology, and if they don't know, I'm getting on YouTube and trying to figure it out. So yes, helping support each other. That is a really big part. None of us can do everything ourselves. Some people like to think they can, but it is good to rely on those reciprocal relationships to be able to foster an understanding of what we do, what another library does, professional development, problem solving, improves services, and makes working more enjoyable. Exactly. So all of these things that you guys are coming up with, really, really important things to think about, because networking, even sometimes we don't even think we're doing it. You know, interlibrary loan, that's all about networking. That's building relationships with other libraries and getting resources for your customers or your patrons. Exchanging knowledge, supporting each other. It keeps us accountable and updated on what's going on. So great, great responses. Thank you, everyone. Again, networking is about forging those long-term reciprocal relationships, and it helps you and your colleagues do your jobs better. So I want you to keep that in mind. A few other quotes from the article. If you really want to do your job well, you have to know and work well with others in the field. Now, think back to library school or undergrad or whatever program you were in, and think about all of those group projects. All of the, and I can feel everyone rolling their eyes and cringing, because I know a lot of people really dislike group projects. I was one of those nerds who really loved group projects, because I would kind of, and you'll see when we talk about personality types why I loved group projects. Group projects are one of those subversive methods educators do to make sure people network. And those kind of things prepare you for having to work with other humans in your profession. So when we start working at a library, we have, you know, different team meetings, we have different kinds of committees we have to serve on. So all of that project work tries to help us prepare for working with other people, and knowing our boundaries and knowing how we have to network because we have to rely on other people in other departments. For instance, I know very little about cataloging, so I have to be able to network well with our catalogers, people in tech services, collection management, because I don't understand exactly what they do, but I know who I need to go to if I have a question about something. And I also have to build that relationship with those individuals so that I can feel comfortable to go to them anytime with a question. I also tend to reiterate and say, listen, you're the expert. I have no idea what I'm doing here, so I need your assistance. So you're putting the other person into a position of knowledge and power, and you're also saying to them, I know my limitations. So that's one way that you can network with colleagues. Also, you cannot just isolate yourself and not interact with people. You need to interact. And that's very important. I thought this part in this article was very important, because if you isolate yourself and not interact with people, what happens? And I'm asking this as a group. This is another chat box question. If you isolate yourself and not interact with people, what happens? So brainstorm on that for a second, okay? You can't learn. What else is not gonna happen if you isolate yourself? Or what is going to happen if you isolate yourself? You're out of the loop, don't have the latest information, so it's gonna make it hard for you to keep up. You get left out. And goals sometimes fall short. Professional relationships wither. Yes, exactly. You are limited in resources. Definitely. Like we're talking about, all of this networking allows us to build those resources. It is lonely. Frankie, that's true. It is lonely. And as much as an introvert as someone might be, you still need to somehow interact. It's a mental health thing. It's really important. And that interaction can be on a lot of levels. It can be like we're doing right now. Here we are all virtual and we're talking through the chat box. Lack of trust and support from other professionals. Limit yourself to grow professionally. You lose motivation and work can be dull without engaging with others. So all very good points, very important things to think about. Okay, so now I'm going to have you guys do your first exercise. Lisa, COVID has shown us how important interaction is to all of us. Yes, that's very important. That's a good observation about working from home and dealing with the pandemic. Okay, so 5 minutes. I'm just going to give you 5 minutes. I'm looking at my clock. It's 10:21. We'll stop at 10:26. I want you to brainstorm by yourself. And I want you to do these two things. Number one, think about how you could network online and what are two methods you could come up with to do this. So get out a piece of paper, write it down, open up Word on your computer, however you want to do it. Take notes for yourself. Number one, think about how you could network online and what are two methods you can come up with to do this. And then two, when meeting someone in person and they ask what you do, what is a unique way you can tell them what you do? So think about those two things. I'm going to go ahead and mute my mic, and 10:26 is when we will talk about this. So okay, it is 10:26. So let's go ahead and discuss some of the things you came up with. And for this part, if any of you feel comfortable or you want to unmute yourself and talk, or if you want to unmute yourself and display your video, you're more than welcome to talk about these things. Also, feel free to go ahead and cut and paste or write down in the chat box some things you came up with, and I will read those as you go ahead and post them. So again, if anybody wants to unmute or show your video, feel free to go ahead and do that now. Otherwise, go ahead and type into the chat box what your responses were to the exercise. Okay, could send emails and create or do MS Teams or Zoom meetings instead of phone calls. Zoom and Facebook, all right. Join professional chat groups. Yes, that's important. Been doing more on LinkedIn. Yes, definitely. LinkedIn is a great resource to be able to network online. LinkedIn, yep, virtual meet and greet. There's a question about what are the professional chat groups. LinkedIn actually has a lot of good groups that if you're not on LinkedIn, go back into LinkedIn and check and see what those professional groups are. I know there's like one on digital libraries, there's all different kinds of things. Discussion boards, okay. ALA, yes, ALA has several professional discussion groups. Create social events online. Yes, that's definitely good. One of the things we've done at the State Library is to have virtual lunch times. So just a great way to chat with colleagues. Use webinars to find potential interdisciplinary partners. Join LIS profession social media groups. Friend and follow others. Yes, that's important. I see a lot of social media here, which is definitely important nowadays. Create a meetup. Librarian social group, network online, use Facebook, attend virtual conferences. And here's someone saying, I'm at a loss to what a unique way would be to tell or show what I do. So let's go ahead and move into that second part about telling people what you do and what's a unique way to say what you do. Okay, let's see. Oh, virtual coffees, going back to our first one. And mentor or support other librarians online. Here's a response. I build lifelong learners by introducing children to the joys of reading. That's a great, unique way. I'm a community connector. That's a great response. Because what you want to do is you want to say to someone in a unique way what you do so that it will prompt them to ask a question. Because it's like, oh, community connector, what does that mean? And that way you're able to have a conversation. Work to meet the needs of our public library customers and encourage them in their learning process. I'm a professional people person. I engage and celebrate my community. I help parents understand how to best prepare their children to succeed in life. That's great. Electronic resources, yes. Support student success, share books. I share books, I like that. That's easy to remember. Wear your library t-shirt, that's great. I share knowledge. I train students to be the next generation of an information literate workforce, that's great. Support higher education research and curriculum. Try to be a cheerleader for the group. That's always hard to do. You have to really be in the mood to be a cheerleader, at least I do. Our library system is a hub for the community and information industry, helping our community through support and resources. Great. I see a lot of people, you're thinking about your library's mission. You could even say to someone, I'm a knowledge engineer or I'm in knowledge management. And that's going to prompt someone to ask a question. What does that mean? So anyway, great responses. I'm going to go ahead and move on. Thank you for doing that little exercise. So here are some tips, and I found this really good article on LibGig, 7 networking tips for reluctant librarians. And the first one is be interested in someone's library goals, passions, and experiences. If you're interested in what they do, then you're able to be an active listener. This is something that I've grown into. I used to be a horrible active listener, but I think as I have progressed in my career, I tend to be a little bit better at being an active listener. It's something I have to really work at and concentrate on. But anyway, being an active listener can really help with networking. Also, find your niche within the librarian tribe. A lot of people starting out aren't quite sure what they are, supposed to be doing or what they enjoy doing. So networking helps build finding that niche. Also, ask for library career help. Talk to people who have been in the profession for a long time. A lot of people really enjoy talking about what they do and what they have done. Also, if your library has human resources manager, talk to your human resources manager. Ask how you can develop your career, how you can be better at what you do. Offer to give help by sharing your library and information science expertise and career experiences. You have to know when to offer that. Some people maybe don't want that right away. So you have to kind of figure out when is best to share your experience. Be open to everyday opportunities to connect. You guys have been doing that great in the chat box. A lot of you have been able to see where everyone else is from. So we're doing that virtual networking. Develop a connection mindset. That's something that a session like this helps you think about. You want to pull that to the forefront and think, how can I build more connections, especially during COVID? We know it's a difficult opportunity or a difficult challenge, but it's an opportunity to be able to build connections. You guys are doing that in the chat box right now. Also, number 7, keep in mind, it's okay to skip that networking event. It's okay to, if you need downtime, if you need to reset and regroup, you don't have to attend everything. You don't have to try to go to everything. That's one of my issues, is I always feel like I have to do everything and go to everything, but it's okay not to. So this is your homework assignment. And so I want you to jot this down. This is a great website, all based on Myers-Briggs personality type indicator. It's called 16 Personalities, and that's 16personalities.com. What I want you to do is take the online test to determine your personality type. Now, this is very different from the regular Myers-Briggs, where you have to go through lots and lots of questions. This only takes 10 or 15 minutes. And it's really a good way to figure out what area you fall into. Then I want you to read through your results and relate them to how you think you interact with other people on a daily basis. So, and thank you, Tiffany, for putting that 16personalities.com link in the chat. So there are 16 personality types grouped into 4 different areas. You've got your analysts, that includes the architect, the logician, the commander, and the debater. You've got diplomats, and that's the advocate, mediator, protagonist, campaigner. You've got sentinels, that's the logistician, and that's different from the logician. I get tongue-tied on those two. So you've got the logistician and defender and executive and consul. And then explorers, you have the virtuoso, adventurer, entrepreneur, and entertainer. And you can see those are made up of the combination of letters. So you've got the N for intuitive, T for thinking, the F for feeling, the S for observers, J for judging, and the P for prospecting. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of delve into each one of these and just kind of describe them. And the importance of all of this is so that you can not only understand yourself, but you can understand others. So when you talk to someone, or when you're meeting with someone, or if you're in a group situation, you can kind of start to see where people fall into these different categories. And that helps you try to interact with them or network with them in the way they're most receptive, and vice versa. So you can see after you do this, you can figure out what drives, what inspires, and what worries different personality types. And that helps you build some more meaningful relationships. So for the analysts, you've got the architect, imaginative, and strategic thinkers. You've got the logician, that's innovative inventors with an unquenchable thirst for knowledge. A lot of library folks fall into that. Commander, bold, imaginative, strong-willed leaders. always finding a way or making a way. And then you've got the debater, smart and curious thinkers who cannot resist an intellectual challenge. A lot of librarians fall into that category too. Then you have diplomats. You have the advocate, who is quiet and mystical. Everybody knows that quiet person, yet very inspiring and tireless. You've got the mediator, who is poetic, kind, and altruistic, always eager to help for a good cause. And as I'm going through these, think of people in your library, and you can kind of start to think of where those individuals fall. You have the protagonist, charismatic and inspiring leaders, able to mesmerize their listeners. And then a campaigner, enthusiastic, creative, and sociable free spirits who can always find a reason to smile. So hopefully, as I'm going through these, you're thinking of people at your library, at your workplace, and kind of putting them or categorizing them into areas that you think they might fall into. You've got the sentinels, the logistician, practical and fact-minded individuals whose reliability cannot be doubted. The defender, very dedicated and warm protectors, always ready to defend their loved ones. You have the executive, excellent administrators, unsurpassed at managing things or people. And then you have the consul, extraordinarily caring, social, and popular people, always eager to help. And then we have the explorers. We've got the virtuoso, bold and practical experimenters, masters of all kinds of tools. The adventurer, flexible and charming artists, always ready to explore and experience something new. Entrepreneurs are smart, energetic, and very perceptive people who truly enjoy living on the edge. And then you've got the entertainer, spontaneous, energetic, and enthusiastic people. Life is never boring around them. And I see someone, Lindsay, has put in that Lindsay is a mediator, INFPA. It's very interesting seeing yourself and others this way, that you guys had also done the strengths and finders training at your library. So that's very cool. One of the things you will notice after all of these different types, there's an A or a T. And the A stands for assertive, and the T actually stands for turbulent. So the assertive type is self-assured, even-tempered, and resistant to stress. And the turbulent types are success-driven, perfectionists, and eager to improve. So I know this is a lot to take in, but it's really good information. So I did this test and I came out as an ENTJ. I think I was ENTJ-A. Yeah, there it is. So I fell into the commander area. Sorry, my phone was ringing. So under these 5 categories, it tells you you're under mind, energy, nature, tactics, and identity. So you could see I was 67% extroverted, 55% intuitive, 51% thinking. So I'm right on the cusp. And looking at these percentages is very helpful because you can tell, you know, you might be right on the edge of, so I'm right on the edge of thinking and feeling under nature. And then under tactics, 78%, I was rather high on the judging, and then 68% on the assertive. So each one of these, when you do your personality type on this website, you can, it gives you insight into how you interact with others. And it also gives you insight as to how other people see you. So you can see here, it says the commander, the ENTJ, decisive people who love momentum and accomplishment. We gather information to construct creative visions, but rarely hesitate too long before acting on them. So, you know, I guess being an impulse purchaser is my category. But anyway, so this gives you insight into my personality type. So it would give you insight into how you would be interacting with me in a social situation. And the same thing goes for other people. Basically, it just opens up the way you think about interacting with individuals. So that's why I wanted to be sure and highlight this. And Tiffany's saying, by the way, note these tests are not a reason to be set in stone for your talents, but more of a good way to self-reflect and discuss differences with others. Yes, exactly. None of these things are set in stone. You can take this test, at different times and be in different mindsets. And so it can vary from time to time. That's why I always say, take these tests on a regular basis, 1, 2, 3 times a year. You could even take them quarterly, and you begin to kind of see pattern, or you can also see changes within yourself. So yeah, good point. Thank you, Tiffany. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on. I see it's 10:42. So I want to look at some other things and talk about some other things that I think are important. And this is the internal social media and the internal project management section of what we're discussing. We use both at the South Carolina State Library. This is a look at our intranet. So we have a method for all of our staff to access information that we may need internally. Has our calendar of events, all of our different things that's going on. But what I have circled there in red, that is for Slack. And I'm not sure if folks are familiar with Slack, but it's a great little social media interactive tool that you could use for your library, and it's free. So I wanted to go ahead and show this little video, and we'll let it come up real quick here. Sometimes these little embedded videos take a few minutes to load. But Slack is great, and I know some people at the State Library use this, and it's just a great way to kind of share things that are not necessarily work related, but so that you could do them just in your leisure. So let me go ahead and click on play, and hopefully the sound comes through.
Welcome to Slack, a channel-based messaging platform. Let's take a quick tour, starting with the sidebar. You can use the sidebar to access the channels you choose to follow and see your direct messages. When a channel name is bold, it means you have unread messages in it. When you see a badge, someone has mentioned you and needs your attention. And when you want to write messages for any conversation, you can use the Compose button. Next, let's see what's happening in this channel, which is a dedicated space for a social media project. You can see the number of people in this channel. To find out who, you could click here. The team has been sending messages and sharing files in this channel. They've also added one-click responses to messages with emoji reactions. For example, Lisa added the checkmark reaction to let Harry and the team know she was done reviewing this file. Now, let's take a look at the variety of messaging options you have when working in Slack. You can bold text, add lists, and loop in teammates by mentioning them to get their attention. You can also attach files so that they stay together with the rest of the conversation. And unlike email, you can edit or delete a message you've already sent. Great for typos. And there you have it, a quick start guide to Slack. If you need help or more information about Slack, you can find it here.
All right, so hopefully that gave you a good overview of Slack. You can also use Slack, in multiple ways. But one of the things we have in Slack, we have sections on gardening and food and all different kinds of things that folks are interested in. So it's a great way to internally kind of share those things, and it also provides virtual networking. So another thing we have for project planning that we use at the State Library is Trello, and it's a collaboration tool. And it's really great because it organizes all of your projects into boards. And what I actually use this for in most of our weekly online meetings for my communications department is we have different project boards, like you can see right here. And Trello really helps you organize everything, and you can add certain people to different cards. So each one of the little areas is a card. So I'm going to show you just kind of an overview of Trello, and this video will take a second to load in the embedded media player. And, you know, I use Trello it's great for just tons of things. So another project management tool that is helpful. This is just 2 minutes. Okay, so that's an overview of Trello, and just kind of talking about how these things work as far as networking and project planning, is that, you know, here in our elements of project planning, you've got your stakeholder needs, your project objectives, deliverables and due dates, your project schedule, roles and responsibilities, of course, your budget, your communication plan, and tracking and management tools. And so using these kind of tools, and they can be used in various ways, both of the Trello and Slack I've shown you have free and paid versions. They work great for being able to plan what you're doing. But the question that I wanted to ask all of you, and this is again for the chat box, is how can project planning relate to networking? And this goes back, and just feel free to answer, just say whatever comes to your mind in the chat box. How does project planning relate to networking? And I want to kind of think back on everything we've discussed and what I've talked about. So how do those two things relate? Oh, good. And I see people have been talking about their Myers-Briggs types. Okay, so make sure you're not working in a siloed environment. Yes, exactly. Because what happens if you're working in a silo? Probably not that much is happening. What are some other things how project planning relates to networking? It can make you have to work with other people you may not have thought of talking to. Exactly. And since we're talking about online now, you know, we're working in different methods. If your coworkers or organization don't use these tools, they don't really help. Exactly. It gets buy-in for implementation on something new. Team building, project planning requires communication. Exactly. With your team and with outside resources. For large projects, it's great to get different perspectives and to be able to delegate tasks. Shared work and thinking improves communication. There we hear a communication again, very important that we all are on the same page. Poor communication is the #1 reason projects fail. That's exactly correct. Networking while project planning allows for collaboration with different and valuable perspectives, helps build your communication and collaboration skills, builds unity. So yes, I see a lot of you talking about communication, and that is extremely important because we all have to work together. You know, if anybody is working too much on their own and not communicating effectively, or not, you know, building those networking relationships with colleagues, then you're going to have a lot of failed projects. And it may be something that you think back on, how projects have failed, and you can kind of see there's probably been a breakdown in communication, and that comes from no networking. So all of that fits together. Yes, shared responsibility. Project planning helps to determine who it is you may need to collaborate with. Yes, great, all good points. Okay, so moving on. 5 ways to keep networking during COVID-19. You already have a built-in icebreaker. If you're on a Zoom session, GoToMeeting, WebEx, anything, you're gonna probably have a chat box. Introduce yourself. If your trainer doesn't have you all introduce yourselves, just go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat box. It's built in right there. Everybody is now a Zoom master. I actually tend to disagree with this. There are a lot of people who are still kind of, you know, not quite sure what they're supposed to click on, but, you know, a lot of people have migrated to working online, and, you know, just try to help other people. If you see they're having trouble, just go ahead and put in the chat box or open your mic and you know, try to help someone figure out what they need to do. Number 3, organizations are adapting to the new realities. That's something we've had to adapt to. Many of us at the South Carolina State Library have been working from home since March 19th. So it's almost a full year. It's something that we have to think about, and we have to, you know, be able to keep our profession alive and be able to flourish. And again, one of those ways is to just get out there when you're in an online situation. And like I said, just introduce yourself. You can see the difference it has made, I think, in this kind of session by you all being able to use the chat box to introduce yourselves, talk about things that are important to you, and that helps us learn one another and how we interact. Social media is tailor-made for this challenge. Again, find those professional groups that are important, learn from one another, do that online virtual networking so that you can figure out what other people are doing. And you can also ask for help. You know, there may be someone out there doing something really well that you don't know about, and it may give you ideas to be able to do something better at your library. Also, learning-centered networking and opportunities are out there. Much like this training session, there are all kinds of other training sessions available. You know, go to our events calendar at the State Library, see what other kind of opportunities there are we have a ton of free learning opportunities. Keep those in mind, and do your best to join in as much as possible. Kind of keeps your creative juices flowing. Yes, and I see, looking at the chat box, 2 and 3 are nice goals, but unfortunately not everyone is on board. Yeah, that's difficult. And you know, it depends on your library's administration and how they are with networking or with online training, all those different kinds of things. Sometimes you just have to, you know, make do with what you're given. So hopefully this session has given you some ideas to be able to, you know, get out there virtually. So that's it. It is 10:56. We've got a few more minutes for questions, I'd like to thank everyone. Thank you, Tiffany, for helping with the session today. If anybody wants to ask a question, feel free to put it in the chat box. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. If anybody needs to unmute your mic or show your video, feel free to do that as we go ahead and wrap up right now. So thank you all. Lindsay, April, Frankie, Phyllis. Great, thank you.